Okay, well, I see a sign that the broadcast is live. So, welcome to the VMware Anywhere Workspace event preview extravaganza. Hey, we're live on a couple of our YouTube pages. We've got Brian Madden, Ron Oglesby, Gabe Knuth, and I'm Jack Madden, and we're all from the VMware EUC team.
Yes.
And I am closing the extra window of the live YouTube page that I had open. Live TV, everyone.
Yeah, I'm gonna get that here. I tweeted out earlier. I'm visiting my mom in Ohio this week, and I'm up in the attic. And what I hear right now behind that closed door is like Jeopardy, really loud, and I heard a telephone ring, like an actual, like old school telephone ring. Yeah. But they did say Jack and I are brothers. So our mother is going to watch this on YouTube also downstairs. So I may have our own delay of this.
Oh, wow.
And be careful what we say then, because you actually might hear a knock on the door.
Yeah.
So let's all talk about how Anderson Cooper's doing. That's the host of Jeopardy.
They're behind. Aaron Rodgers is down there now.
So the reason why I've brought you all together, or the reason why we're here today, of course, is that we did a big announcement on Tuesday, and we have a big event coming up on May 5th. So Tuesday was our Anywhere Workspace announcement, and this is covering across VMware EUC. Again, the four of us that you see in front of you, we're all on the EUC team, but this event covered our SD-WAN and Carbon Black groups as well. And we had press releases, blog posts, briefings, the whole 9 yards on Tuesday. And we're going to be having this online live event with a couple of different tracks of sessions on what is that, next May 5th. And so I wanted to bring everybody here today. Of course, we want everyone to register for the May 5th event. But there are some things that we can talk about the announcement and about the event, such as what is Anywhere Workspace, and what is this new acronym that, we're all in EUC. I think it was probably just last year that a lot of us started hearing of this acronym of Sassy. So these are the things that we can go into today.
When you mentioned acronyms, I thought you were going to say AW, Anywhere Workspace, which to me means AirWatch, right?
Yeah.
So we always have all these new acronyms to learn. And I feel like also I want to point out it's called Anywhere Workspace, not Anywhere Workplace. Not that it really matters, but it's Workspace 1, Anywhere Workspace. So we're all about the workspace at the VMware EUC.
And I've heard people say AWW or use AWW as an acronym as well. So Anywhere Workspace, I guess. It's already happening. It's not even May 5th.
Yeah. And like Jack said, the interesting thing to me is we're all EUC guys here, but it's a marrying of a bunch of different groups within VMware outside of EUC, right? And especially when you talk about Sassy, a lot of the technologies within those Sassy pods aren't even really what we would consider traditional EUC, right? It's not like we're putting a bunch of VDI in a box or something and dropping it into a pod. So to me, it's really interesting having the opportunity recently to be able to work with these different groups that then they reference us in EUC as, oh, well, we've got to think about how we do that with EUC now. And I'm like, oh, look, they're talking about my stuff. Okay, now I can talk. So it's going to be interesting for the customers having to see all that brought together versus, them having to piecemeal some of it themselves.
Yeah, and I think this is so cool. And I'm reflecting, like, we tweeted that picture of the four of us back together before VMworld, and at VMworld, we were very much talking about things like getting devices drop shipped to people at home, getting VDI scaled up very quickly to people at home. But this whole, especially bringing in this Sassy and SD-WAN component, like in EUC terms, we're used to thinking maybe, okay, devices to people, desktops to people, figuring out conditional access to apps for people. But then, as we've all very much experienced, there's the network service, the network security at home. I remember all those conversations a year ago. We were having conversations about like, oh, turn down your Netflix resolution so that everybody in the neighborhood that's trying to do school and work from home can all successfully access everything that they need to do. And one of the most important changes that I made to enable work from home was like, one, just upgrading my Wi-Fi router from something that was like 2012 era to something that was modern. Yeah. But just think of like all of us thinking of in our EUC mindsets of how do we get to people what they need to get their job done, that like having the good connectivity and the quality of service, so all the apps and desktops and everything that you need to do instead of just a couple of branch offices and like all these end users at home, like it's another whole new dimension.
Corporate controlled networks at branch offices, right? Like that is so far cry different from end user configured Wi-Fi, and it's down in the basement and they're, say, in the attic of their mom's house trying to access the Wi-Fi that their mom set up. Right? Like exactly. We don't have any control or really awareness or ability to influence the configuration of some of these networks. And so we still need to find a way to ensure a good connection for whatever the application workload is, whether that's SaaS apps or virtual desktops and apps or whatever the case may be.
And so hasn't the theme of end user computing for years just been like, okay, now there's more and more things that we're like thinking about in terms of end user computing, because it's always like, okay, EUC, it's Windows desktops. Well, it's Windows desktops and virtual desktops. And then mobile came along 10 years ago, and it's like, oh, well, now we have to figure out getting access on mobile devices and control of access to SaaS apps, and now it's like another thing for EUC pros to think about, and another organization for them to work within. So this kind of is what this Anywhere Workspace is about, and in one of the ways that if you'd ask me to explain it, like, this is another part of delivering remote work to users, and we have these two things and three things, including Carbon Black, as part of VMware. So we're like, okay, clearly there are some ways that these align here.
Transponstering. I was watching Ron this morning when you were giving the VMUG keynotes, and that slide you had at the end I liked, because it kind of showed like the landscape of the VMware solutions and laid out all the products. Because VMware, of course, is very much more than EUC. I mean, it's kind of funny. We're just little tiny EUC, and so people are like, "Yeah, we know that." But I'm like, "Oh, VMware has like virtualization and everything, clouds." But when everyone like scattered and started working from anywhere, a year ago, we found that, okay, what do you need for that, right? You've got to deliver your apps to the users. You need to like have a client on the device. You need to know, is that device secure? Maybe, we got some Carbon Black. Let's put some Carbon Black on there. Now, what's the network look like? We've got the SD-WAN. The Sassy stuff we'll dig into later means, I don't have to care about where my users are in VPNs. So it's like almost everyone's scattered and was very quickly kind of like hodgepodging together their own solutions. And what was it? They're like, well, I need one of these, I need one of these, I need one of these, I need one of these. And they're all picking the same four things again and again, And we're like, well, hey, if we just actually do a little bit of engineering to kind of like glue these things together and actually make it so it's a simple deployment, simple provisioning, simple reporting and that kind of stuff. This is something that like practically everyone who's working from everywhere on planet Earth is able to leverage. And so I think this is actually one of the things. This is very cool. I tweeted this the other day also. This Anywhere Workspace thing we built, this has real engineering behind it. It's not just a SKU bundle of
it's not a SKU.
components. Yeah. And we realize everyone's buying the same 4 or 5 things to get their jobs done from anywhere. Like, bing, here's how our offerings come to be. And we did it, and it's cool. And now we're launching it.
Well, and I mean, taking what Jack said and talking about where we were a year ago and where we are now, kind of both as consumers of technology and applications and as IT pros having to support that out in the field, I look at this stuff and, I talked about we've got all these various technologies and products from different groups within VMware being brought together. But it used to be, and it was even a year ago, EUC was what Jack said. How do I get a desktop out? How do I get Windows here? This has like ripped the Band-Aid off of something that has plagued IT for years. And I talked about it a little bit this morning in my session. I said most of what companies are doing today for management that have been around a while, not anybody that's built greenfield in the last year or two, but I mean, imagine an IT department at a big financial, at a manufacturer, whatever, that's been around for 25 years. Their entire model is based on something out of the late 90s, right? SCCM was SMS, which before that was SneakerNet, and it was basically based on a fat computer with one of those big CRTs sitting on top of it, plugged into an Ethernet network on a secure inside the perimeter type thing, and you could just distribute packages. Well, the security model for that's completely gone, right? Perimeter security we know is useless these days. That's kind of where zero trust models and continuous access and re-verification come in. But updating and management, I think I even had in a slide deck. Do you still have Windows machines joined to the domain? What is it? 1999? It's a completely different model available to people now. And this pandemic and what we had to do initially has first exposed the wound and now is making companies go, okay, we have to do this differently. We can't manage these desktops remotely anymore the way we were. Now they're all out in the field. And the data shows from all the industries and all the surveys, 100% of people are not going back. Some percentage are, and there will be in and out of office. But we live in a different world than we did 12 months ago. And if you're not managing and designing for that right now, you're going to be so far behind the power curve, your competition is going to eat you up.
And gosh, this makes me think of a point that people made. I've heard several times over the last year with it's so fortunate that at this time when we are all going to work from home, that there were mature video collaboration technologies and such. And at the same time, as you're talking about moving beyond that model, it's so fortunate that we happen to have the Windows 10 modern management stack. That's mature. We have at VMworld, we talked about the numbers of large customers that we had on that, and it's we're so fortunate that tool is available now.
Well, that the technology is available. Well, in 10 years from now, we'll look back on what we're doing today and we'll say it's archaic, right? We'll all have our Elon Musk neural links and all that, and we'll be like, oh, how did we work before? But yeah, you're right that timing wise, even though a lot of corporations weren't fully embraced in the modern management side, timing wise, the tech was at least there for them to start doing something with it. And now, I remember 60 days into VMware, so that might have been June or July of last year, when I was talking about how impressed I was with my first laptop that came from VMware. And it was like a little 3x5 index card that said, here's how you sign in, and your laptop will start downloading all the stuff you need. There was pushback. We would do these talks with customers and we'd tell them, look, stop bringing in computers and putting your image on them and sending them out. I mean, it's insane to do it that way and try to manage it that way. And I remember someone goes, well, that's the way we've always done it. I'm like, yeah, I used to ghost machines in 2001 also. Are we still using ghosts? No, there's new ways to do things, and
yeah, Achronic's True Image.
yeah. Let's go with that. That's even scarier, but that's what we're looking at now. And the Windows management piece to me is a no-brainer. And it's something that, okay, modern management, the out-of-box experience stuff, great, run away. But if they're not planning for stuff like, and I say Zero Trust, and Zero Trust isn't a VMware product, right? It's an architecture, it's a mindset. But if they're not planning to start implementing Zero Trust ideas, how are they going to do this work from anywhere? How are they going to? They're not going to be able to, right? They won't be able to check devices and check authentication. They'll still be using. I mean, we all know, and everybody listening has had password complexity rules they've had to deal with for 20-something years because some dude at the government wrote a white paper once 30 years ago about it. But if they don't start using passwordless authentication, delivering certificates to the end user and allowing them to do multi-factor authentication without passwords and doing things like that, where are they going to get their workers from, right? The companies that embrace these changes that allow people to work like that are going to have a leg up on recruitment, retention. Imagine being told you have to come into the office every day and your computer sits here. A year and a half ago, people might have said okay to that, right?
Is it one of those colorful new iMacs?
Yeah, maybe it's colorful. Yeah.
So it's been pretty obvious too, having lots of customer conversations now over the last year, that the customers that were further along their digital transformation path had an easier go of it. And I'm not saying it was easy, but they were just better prepared to accept and work with all these new different ways that users are connecting and trying to work. And that's like what Brian was saying before, where we realized they were using all these technologies, and this is Anywhere Workspace.
Oh, you're dead on. And picture two different customers. One that took, like you said, they were just somewhere on the journey, right? They had some integration, on the modern management side. They were doing some EMM. They were kind of down that path. Versus another customer that I'm not going to say fought it, but pushed it off, and we're still pure perimeter-based security. If you want to come into our network, it must be a VPN connection, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All the things that make a traditional sneaker net, Ethernet type of little network on an interior LAN. How many of them did we take calls from that our VPN keeps dying because it's completely being overwhelmed when everyone went home? They couldn't rapidly scale it. They couldn't secure it. That was the other thing, is once they threw all this stuff out there, because they weren't down the journey enough to understand security and how they would do authentication and verification and all that, they had to go back and fix it all. I mean, because it was completely unsecure, or at least somewhat unsecure.
Yeah, or they rolled out, say, desktop virtualization because they couldn't sustain the workload of laptops and desktops that people brought home consuming the entire VPN. So they tried to roll out desktop virtualization, but then didn't secure it. And so now you've invited all these threats that traditionally lived on the endpoint that maybe had at least some sort of security because it was coming over the VPN. Maybe you could put some policy on that. Now you're just running it in the data center right next to all your other workloads because you just did the quick fix.
Yeah, which also meant crazy network traffic. Like now I have to connect to, I'm connecting to my VDI instance. My boss will only let me access our SaaS apps through the internal network. I have to go through there. They'll only install the plugins or whatever. Maybe it's a Salesforce for Outlook plugin or whatever it was. Now imagine that network traffic. I would talk to people that were doing these complex solutions last year that there were people running Zoom through VDI sessions, right? I mean, it was like, wait a minute, why am I doing this? Why am
Zoom
I sending
has
the traffic
on everything?
Yeah, but to enable that sometimes goes against the way they thought about managing those devices, and they had to own it. They had to put the software on it. They had to update it, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just a complete shift in a mindset to being able to say, no, if it can run local, run local. If it can't, we do this. If this app is really that important and its data is so confidential to us, it's our IP or whatever. Yes, you can only connect into the secure network for that piece of data, but not this. Who cares about the menu at the cafeteria? Things like that. But that it's a complete mind shift around management of everything the end user does. And that means networking, that means security, that means authentication, that means storage of the data and data segmentation on the back end. It's everything. It's no longer just Ron, Brian, and Gabe making VDI books.
Well, so let's talk about this the networking side, because as I mentioned, us as 4 EUC people, last year we learned a new acronym, and that was Sassy. And I remember, Brian, this is probably almost a year ago that you did the webinar with Craig Connors from the VMware SD-WAN side, and now so since then we've had a year. Brian and Ron, I know you talk about this in front of a lot of customers a year, of talking about our SD-WAN story, how it fits with our EUC story. What is Sassy? I mean, if you had to ask me to give a definition of like what is Sassy, a textbook definition of Sassy, I think I wouldn't be as crisp about it as my definition of mobile device management. So this is the new area for a lot of us to get more familiar with. But
Sassy, I mean, it's SASE. It looks like SACE. And it's a Gartner term, Secure Access Service Edge, whatever in the world that means. I describe it as a global VPN as a service. And the way this works is, just think conceptually, like Sassy, like all good technologies. Like, remember how VDI was sort of more like discovered than it was invented? Like a few, decades ago, they're like, oh, we can put VMs and use RDP, and then, oh, this is interesting. It was kind of like that, where obviously VPN appliances in the last decade transitioned from hardware appliances to, virtual machines. And so, in the old days, you would have one VPN in your building, and then all your users would connect into it. And, as people use the cloud more and more, specifically the hyperscalers like AWS and, Google and Azure, they kind of realized like, oh, like the internal Google network, the internal AWS, the internal Azure network is like way faster and better than the internet. And so what they said is, hey, instead of having like a VPN, like I'm in Ohio right now, right? So if you have to connect from California, instead of you connecting to the VPN from California to Ohio, why don't I just set up like a virtual VPN instance at an AWS data center in California, and then just use like internal AWS traffic to route the user back? And let's put up one in Florida, let's do one in Canada, let's do one in Europe, let's do one. And so people are manually just building all these, even using our own like VMware, like our unified access gateways and these kinds of things, just building these VMs and kind of buying these access and just running them all over the place. And then, and this is not a VMware thing, this is what people started doing in the world of VPNs in general. And then people started to realize like, wow, this is actually great. Can't like, I just buy this as a service? Like, can't you run like 100 like virtual VPN nodes like all over the world and just give me a subscription like my old CompuServe account or whatever? Just let me like dial into the closest one, and we can put some global load balancing to figure out what's nearby and all that kind of stuff. And that's sort of exactly what Sassy is. And so at VMworld last year, we launched our VMware Sassy service. This is available as a service, and on these edge nodes, it's got a bunch of pieces. It has the SD-WAN. Sort of, with VeloCloud, sort of the like network optimization. It does, the unified access gateways on the end there. It'll do your connection, termination, SSL decryption, authentication. It can do all your authentication on the edge, so you only let authenticated users, on the next step. And basically bundles all these pieces together. And we've got like 100 service nodes sort of around the world that we
all
operate.
Those pops,
yeah, exactly. The points of presence there, and then we operate those so that you as a customer, it's just like, oh, cool, I've got 5,000 users, they're all over the world. I want them to have like fast access all the way back to what we're doing. or to your company, or wherever that has to go.
To the company, and also to the vast majority of SaaS providers that are out there. I mean, you may be terminating your connection in one of our POPs and accessing, since I use Salesforce before, I'll use it again, accessing Salesforce data for your company. Well, where that actual data is probably within the same data center or sub 10 milliseconds from where that Sassy POP is. You know, you're not hopping back to your corporate network, back to something else, then out to Salesforce and routing it all back. The other thing, Brian, is not only do they have, and I know we talked about the Unified Access Gateway, they actually have some of the tunneling stuff. We didn't just take our UAG stuff and jam it into a VM. Our engineers actually went out and started taking like the tunneling and that whole model out of what you would have installed commercially if you bought a UAG. Like Brian said, they were building these things so that we could make it a web service, so that we could put it in there and massively scale it. You don't have to go, well, I need 4 UAGs, I need this. Yeah. And then we tied it in to what we call secure access, which is the entire authentication model. If you want to do Active Directory, great. You want to do ADFS, great. You want to do some other authoritative,
Okta, all that.
Yeah, whatever. We integrate with all of it. And that secure access, for those that don't have like an authoritative model already and they want to do it, they can use secure access and it can be authoritative. Or you can say, no, we use Okta, or we use whatever. We have some directory we built, and then that feeds all of our other systems, our HR, our pay, whatever. We just want you to broker it. Okay. We'll connect to that and pull that in and actually do the authentication that way. And of course, that turns into more than authentication like the normal user thinks. I typed in, R. Oglesby in my password. That also can deal with, when we're talking about this whole thing, that also can deal with client-side certificates and doing that type of authentication, et cetera, et cetera. So it's actually like Sassy. Our Sassy service is purpose-built for what Brian was talking about. Just anywhere you are, you're going to connect to the nearest one. You can authenticate. We've got, the web cloud security, which was the Menlo stuff. We've got the SD-WAN stuff and kind of the UAG and tunneling.
And to walk that story forward, so that's the VMware Sassy service. We announced that at VMworld last year. That's like a year ago almost. Mm-hmm. What we're talking about today, though, with this Anywhere Workspace, is our customers who are using the Sassy service. Now they was like, well, how do you get this, client agent, this tunnel agent on your devices? Well, hey, we have this Workspace ONE Intelligent Hub thing. Let's look at that. And now it's like, well, how do I know I trust the device? Hey, we've got this Carbon Black thing, because you don't want to allow a compromised device onto your network. And so that's where we take what we built on the Sassy service offering over the past year, and what we're just announced or launched in the past few days, and what we're talking about today is now combining that with Carbon Black, combining that with the Intelligent Hub on all, for iOS, Android, Windows, Mac OS, Linux, all the different device types. And then that's setting the pathway forward for doing things like Zero Trust and all the stuff that Ron was talking about earlier.
Yeah, no doubt. And to me, what gets interesting is especially from a device perspective. Brian had a slide. I was looking at some of Brian's decks yesterday, and it was like he was talking about we have all these users, we have all these types of connections, and we have all these devices, and we don't even own them, right? And he had this picture of crazy devices and things plugged into outlets and weird stuff. And in this world where we don't control it, you've got to have something that checks the device. And it has to be intelligent to say, is it at this minimum security level? Is it patched to this level? Does it have anti-malware? Does it have a local certificate? Can we do the type of encryption we want? It's not just about, and I like your analogy of it's a VPN anywhere, but it's not just about opening a tunnel anymore. It's if I open a tunnel into my network, what's the security on that end device? And can I allow that device onto my network?
Yeah, and I think this kind of stuff, we are EUC, our background is EUC. And so a lot of this area, it's familiar to us because, as you said, Ron, over the years, EUC people have been expanding what they're interested in. And like Gabe, remember back at brianmadden.com talking about like Packeteer and packet shapers and WAN traffic optimizers. That's kind of what the SD-WAN technologies of today this is sort of like those are the grandparents of that, the old packet shapers and that kind of stuff. So we who've been doing VDI and these kinds of things for a long time have always known that finicky networks. As a matter of fact, where's Jack?
Where's Jack?
Evidently, there was a power outage at Jack's house.
Finicky networks have always, kind of been a bane to our existence. And of course, as we spread around and start working from everywhere, it just becomes that much more important. So it's, this is technologies for us that is very familiar and comfortable. And so I think that's why we're seeing, with the Sassy offering, just a huge uptick. And a huge usage, because it's kind of like, this is one of those offerings that finally it's like, oh, this makes sense. Like, we did that. And people were like, is there any questions? No, that makes sense. Yeah, you should do it like that. We did. Cool.
Yeah. And the work from, this whole work from anywhere or anywhere economy. I know Brian likes that term, anywhere economy. A lot of times when we discuss this and we put it out there, we're almost in our minds, we see ourselves, right? I see myself at home. I see myself at the kitchen table. Last weekend I was in Chicago. I see myself in Chicago, but it's going to impact more than that. It's going to impact those folks that we don't even think about as traditional, sit at a desk, edit a PowerPoint, edit spreadsheets. You're in Visio. It's going to impact all these folks that are actually, non-work from home types. Truck drivers that actually have data connections back, that they're getting routed in real time to different places. Home healthcare workers, social workers, people that have to go out into the public and go to people's homes. It could be even, maintenance people that have to go to people's homes. That type of access from the network on up. Again, do you want them connecting to your network? What does their device look like? Maybe the guy who's doing maintenance is a plumber. He doesn't know about Android updates. He doesn't care about Android. He wants to put in a new faucet. How do we help them and make it really, really simple for them to connect and get access to everything? Because quite frankly, when I see this, it still drives me nuts. When you see people with 2 cell phones, I want to be like, really? They don't want the plumber to have 2 cell phones either.
Don't you know you can put a hypervisor on that?
Yeah, something.
So, Gabe, I thought you were joking, Gabe, about the power outage at Jack. There really was a power outage at Jack. So, because Jack had a fun story earlier where he got an email from our internal IT who had noticed that his connection was not that great often, and there's a button to click to get one of the SD-WAN devices.
An SD-WAN device for the home.
They can do your whole home. So that was kind of interesting. We've got 10, 12 minutes left here. I want to talk about our event.
You have to leave soon, don't you?
I'm sorry?
Don't you have to leave?
I have to leave, yeah. But
all the Maddens will be gone.
Yeah. I have another event to do. It starts at 3:15. So I'm going to bow out a couple minutes early. But I did, before I left, want to mention, this global event we have. And we were showing you the URL in the lower third there. This is on May 5th and 6th. Thank you. This is on May 5th and 6th, depending on what region it is. It's basically like a follow the sun all-day launch party. So we're going to do it in the European time zones. We're going to do it in the Americas time zones. And then we're going to do it in the Asia-Pacific time zones. And I've got a couple sessions there. It's basically like turn the TV on and watch for the day. We've got, keynote events. I'm leading a couple panels, talking with various UCV experts about Zero Trust and Agile Workspace and that sort of thing. I see in the notes that, do you have a session there, Gabe?
I do. Yeah, I've got one talking about the potential of VMware Horizon when you use it with SD-WAN and Carbon Black and how that fits in. The 3 tenets of Anywhere Workspace are Carbon Black, Sassy, and Workspace One. Where's Horizon? Horizon's kind of in the
Workspace
one area. Yeah. And so that's what that session's about.
And the panels that I'm doing, by the way, are live also. So we're
you got like Dane Young and John Tolles and Winter Steiger and Yuri Magalith and another one. That's cool. Like you've got
and the cool thing for those that if they can get out on the 5th or 6th and watch these is especially the panels. It's not somebody from corporate marketing gave somebody a deck and they're reading the notes on the slides, right? We're actually going to be talking about Of course, we're going to be talking about the products, but we're going to be talking about the types of problems that people are trying to solve, what this means going on today. And it's not just, hey, let me show you a list of features with some check boxes. That's what's cool about these panels and this type of event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's other sessions too. I mean, there's a lot of content. There's content like my session is kind of introing just that this stuff can be done, and then there's follow-up sessions that show you how it gets done,
Mm-hmm.
and we keep that conversation going. And so it's really going to be, I think, really informative. I think it'll be useful for people of kind of all experience levels.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I can't wait.
I'm looking forward to that. On that note, I'm going to bow out and go to my other talk right now. So I will leave you all Madden free. But my question for you is, just I'm going to disappear here. So just feel free and say the most awesome thing you can think about Sassy and about the VMware Anywhere Workspace. As a user of it, as VMware employees, we're looking forward to getting it out there. We're glad that it's able to launch. We've been working on it for a long time. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all on the 5th and the 6th. So I'm going to duck out. Ron, Gabe, have a good one. Everyone watching, thank you for coming today.
So
we're 100% Madden free.
It's the first time in my life I've been Madden free. It's weird in here. Seems like a week.
I was, it was funny. I was just thinking of something, and we talked about authentication, and we talked about tunneling and whatnot. One of the things that has been interesting to me, I've been floating around with Zero Trust guys for the last couple of weeks, and one of the things that's been interesting to me that just made sense is this concept of continual validation. I have a session. I'm active. Maybe it's a connection through the tunnel. Maybe I have a VDI session open. And continual validation is not just about that I authenticated at the beginning of my authentication. It allowed me into a desktop or an app or something, but it's about constantly checking. Am I accessing some type of data or attempting to access some type of data that my device isn't trusted enough? Maybe if I was on my work laptop that they know is at a certain level, that has the certificates installed and they, et cetera, I could get into the real high-end back-end data, or IP or whatever, where I'm doing it from an iPad in a weird location. Yeah, it was fine for me to get to my desktop, but I can't get to that back-end app that transfers money, things like that. And not just doing it at login, but constantly checking. Has the status of that device changed? I've been logged in for 9 hours. And at hour 5, I started doing some hinky looking stuff on that device. If you're checking all the time, you can disconnect the session, you can deny access to things. And that's actually something really interesting, especially if you see how some of these people leave their VDI sessions, right? 8-hour timeouts, right? I mean, just huge things like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you look at that and tie that, so there's the Workspace ONE intelligence components of that. There's how that can integrate with all of the other. Hey, look who's back.
We were Madden free for 2 minutes.
2 minutes. There's just so much potential here. And it's all stuff that we've been hearing about doing this analytical and data-driven security for a long time, but we haven't really had the compelling event to put it in place because we were still doing so many things the old way, and now we're not. And I don't know where anybody is on their journey. We talked to some customers that are already there. We talked to some customers that are still just getting started and trying to figure out how this is going to work with their, with their Windows 2012 domain, on premises. But we finally have that compelling event where people need this at all, kind of in all walks of life. And that's where, all this set of technologies can help you wherever kind of you are on that path.
No, very true. And it's interesting to watch people when the light bulb kind of comes on around, Sassy and whatnot. And one of the interesting things that I heard the other day, we were discussing with a customer that had a large app portfolio. You go to any large institution and they're like, well, we have 2,000 apps, and if you're an app guy, that just makes you insane. But they were talking about zero trust and these types of policies that will get wrapped around applications. And they go, well, how do you make 2,000 application policies, control policies? You know, we're going to have to make 2,000. I'm like, no.
We hired 2,000 Rons.
Yeah, I'm like, no, we're not going to do that. And I'm like, these control policies, you almost get to think of them like the way the U.S. government classifies documentation or data, right? There's, confidential, kind of the lowest form of classified, right? There's secret, top secret. There's top secret SCI. There's multiple levels there. And not only is there a level of security that says this data is ranked at this level, just because you have that security clearance doesn't mean you get access to that data. You have to also have a need to know, right? That's what we want to do with our apps on the back end. So besides having like a Sassy pod that allows us to authenticate and check devices, as they move down this zero trust model, if they're already starting to think about it, they have to start thinking about how they're going to classify their apps. What tiers are these apps? Because like we said at the beginning, I don't care if you use basic authentication on a trusted device for the cafeteria menu downstairs or on an untrusted device. But when it comes to the application that moves money between bank accounts, I want to know that device is up to date. I want to know that, if it's got the right cert, you've authenticated, you've had multi-factor, you're this type of encryption. And that to me is it's work. But in this new world where I might have a device talking to 5 different SaaS providers and my internal database and VDI, and I'm on Zoom, we've got to start looking at it as classifying the data and the apps, and not, here's your laptop, we're going to lock it down, and this is all you get. And Jack's gone again.
Well, it's always been work, right? No matter what. Yeah. In 1999, it was Office compatibility scripts, right? It was or application compatibility scripts, right? It's always been work to deliver applications and data to users. And the way we do that is different, but at no point in time has it ever been easy and like not required work. Yeah. And this is just the work we have to do now in 2021.
The continual validation is not liking his beard, and so it keeps cutting him off. That's all it is.
So I don't know if we have a hard stop at 45 or if we can keep going. I mean, it just...
I guess we should actually, make sure you guys register. We've got the link right down there at the bottom.
Via.vmware.com/anywhere also takes you to that. So if you
I mean, the one of the points that I was going to add for today's, just as I'm looking through the session catalog, and I have the abstracts in front of me, which I know aren't up right now on the website, but there's some great sessions, some great customers. Looking through that website, so. Gabe, I know your name is listed on there a session for one of the on-demand sessions. What's yours about?
Yeah, we talked about that while you were gone, man.
Oh, okay. Well, so then you two read the show notes that I emailed everybody,
which was a smart move, man.
Recording.
Yeah. Do you have any sessions though? I know. So we talked about my session. We talked about Brian's panels. How about Ron and Jack? Do you guys have?
I do not have any sessions.
You'll have to let me know.
Yeah. I don't have any sessions either. My big part of this Anywhere Workspace launch event, as you know, we had a press release on Monday. We had a whole package of blogs. We had blogs from the Carbon Black blog about the event. We had the Sassy team wrote a blog. We had a couple of EUC blogs. So I think since we've had sort of live in-person events, since VMware, one of the things I've done is take over the VMware EUC blog. So I'm right back at the writing and editing game. So check out all of those posts for the overviews. There's an overview article from Sean. Sanjay Poonen wrote sort of the company-wide view of it, and we have some folks on our product marketing team that wrote about some of the details, both within Workspace ONE and also across all of Anywhere Workspace, that are going to augment and be part of this whole story. So check those out.
Oh, yeah, you have a hard time in my contributions to this, you have a hard time dragging me out of the desktop virtualization side, right? So everything I can contribute is like, that's fine, I can do that, but it has to be about desktop virtualization because I'm just old and I can't teach an old dog new tricks.
It doesn't have anything to do with you being Horizon focused in your day job.
No, right. It's not the blinders that I have on all day. Yeah, the Horizon Cloud on Azure. That's all I got. Yeah.
That's one of the things that's been so cool about getting ready for this Anywhere Workspace launch is like, so many of you know, both Ron and I joined VMware. I joined in April, you joined in May of last year, and it's like getting ready for VMworld. I'm like working with my colleagues all across the EUC business unit, and then it's like, okay, keep on expanding from there. When getting ready for Anywhere Workspace launch, and working with people all across the Sassy and Carbon Black groups.
Yep.
So it's like on a personal note, it's pretty cool, and on a product note, as we've been talking with what we've been putting together with Anywhere Workspace, and like to wrap it with the way that Brian framed it in the beginning, like it's really cool how we can bring this all together.
Neither of you has met a coworker, right? Neither of you has met a single coworker since you joined.
Not face to face, not at all. And
Jack, like you saw Brian one time because he drove through San Francisco, so like, but that doesn't count. He's family, So that's crazy. Like, think of how many, it's probably in the hundreds of people that you've interacted with that you've never met. And I went to Palo Alto a couple of times. I joined in July of 19. And that was it. And so that alone is just mind blowing. Like the hundreds of people that we work with that we've never actually interacted with before. Like, I guess that says a lot about what the world we're in right now.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting for you guys who worked as such a small group together for a long time, and now all of a sudden you get to work with all these other people, right? And all of a sudden, for me, I was constantly on the phone, constantly in meetings, et cetera. A lot of them virtual, right? I mean, a lot of them were WebExes and GoToMeetings and Zooms and stuff, but we would still meet up at conferences or go to the corporate office and have sales kickoffs and all that. That's all gone now. What's been more interesting to me is just the opportunity, even though it's EUC, to be out of the EUC space, right? I mean, I literally had a conversation a couple of weeks ago with someone who was talking about new certificate models and different encryption models to help from a complete mind perspective, but to help against potential quantum attacks in the future. Do you know how awesome it is to have that type of conversation with someone where they're like, yeah, we're trying some stuff. We've got some ideas. And I'm like, what? Okay, describe this to me again, and the conversation then changed from there to the distributed ledger models and blockchain and stuff like that. And while we're all EUC guys, everything touches, especially now, everything touches that end user and what they're doing every day. And we get an opportunity, and our customers who hopefully get on this event get an opportunity to hear about all this technology and get introduced to some really, really cool concepts.
End user computing is cool and at the middle of everything.
It's now cool. Yeah, it used to be we were the guys that dealt with that weird terminal server thing, and now it's cool.
Right. I mean, it's still in a niche.
Yeah.
We think it's cool.
Well, cool guys. It's been a good conversation. I know we've ran a little long, and we got to make sure that they got to make sure to sign up. They got to get to that event. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, May 5th. The link is right there. Really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing all of my colleagues' sessions, and I really hope that everybody signs up and comes and checks it out. And so with that, Gabe, we'll let you have the last word.
Come to hear about desktop virtualization and other things.
Oh, God. Come for the other things. Stay for the desktop virtualization.
I'm going to learn stuff too. No, So no, this event is really cool, and this and all of the stuff that we have going on with Anywhere Technologies, like I mentioned before, it includes Workspace ONE and Carbon Black and Sassy, and Horizon's part of Workspace ONE. It really is the core set of capabilities that you need to help get into that fully kind of future focused or kind of this modern anywhere workplace that we're seeing shape up. What's that number that we keep throwing around, Jack? It's like 40, where 80% of the people had to go to work remotely, and we only expect about half of them to come back to the office. So like 40% of the workforce is going to stay working remotely. That's what Anywhere Workplace space.
Right. But also,
I got tied up all over my
some of them will be back in the office sometimes and other places, and we'll all be all over the place.
Yeah, and that's, I guess we talk about securing the distributed edge. Really, this is like a cloud, not cloudy. I don't mean cloudy in like the marketing way. The edge is not well defined anymore. We don't know that this user is going to be in this place all the time, so we can't plan for that. And so
there is no perimeter.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's that. I'll hand it off to Ron. Baton pass, my friend.
There is no perimeter. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks to everybody for listening, and thanks to Eric and Chelsea behind the scenes on our production team, and that helped organize. And most of all, thank you to everybody for listening, and we'll see you on May 5th.
Cool. See you later.